Language is a living thing, but many of the phrases we use every day are actually built on a foundation of corpses, torture, and medieval misery. We toss around casual idioms without realizing we are referencing the darkest corners of human history. Today, we look at 15 everyday expressions that have origins so gruesome you'll think twice before saying them again. 1. Saved by the bell. In the 17th and 18th centuries, the fear of being buried alive was so widespread that safety coffins were invented. These included a string tied to the corpse's wrist that led to a bell above ground. If you woke up 6 feet under, you'd ring the bell to alert the graveyard shift. It wasn't just a lucky break, it was a literal, desperate plea from the soil. 2. Pulling someone's leg. Today, this means playing a harmless joke, but in the London of the 1800s, it was a specialized technique for street robbers. Trippers would use a wire or a hooked pole to literally pull the legs out from under unsuspecting pedestrians to make them easier to mug. It wasn't about humor, it was about gravity and grand larceny. 3. Waking up on the wrong side of the bed. In ancient Rome, the left side was considered sinister, the literal Latin word for left. It was believed that evil spirits hovered on the left, so getting out of bed on that side meant you were inviting bad luck for the rest of the day. Innkeepers would actually push beds against walls to ensure guests couldn't accidentally summon a demon before breakfast. 4. Bite the bullet. Before the invention of reliable anesthesia, soldiers undergoing surgery on the battlefield were given a lead bullet to clench between their teeth. The soft lead allowed them to scream and grind their teeth without biting through their own tongues while the surgeon worked. It's a phrase about endurance, but it started with the taste of cold metal and the sound of a saw. 5. Skeleton in the closet. Until the Anatomy Act of 1832, the only legal way for doctors to get human bodies for dissection was from the gallows. Demand far outpaced the supply of executed criminals, leading many physicians to hide black market skeletons in their homes or offices to avoid being arrested for grave robbing. Your dirty little secret used to be a very real, very illegal pile of bones. 6. No quarter. If you hear this in a movie, it means someone is getting ruthless, but its military origins are much darker. In the Age of Sail, giving quarter meant showing mercy to a surrendering enemy and providing them with quarters or housing as a prisoner. Declaring no quarter was a formal signal that everyone on the losing side was going to be executed on the spot. 7. More room to swing a cat. This has nothing to do with felines and everything to do with the cat-o'-nine-tails whip used for naval punishment. On crowded warships, sailors would gather to watch a lashing, but they had to stand back to give the bosun enough space to swing the whip without hitting the observers. If your apartment is small, you're literally saying it's too cramped for a public torture session.
8. The grapevine. During the American Civil War, telegraph lines were often strung hastily through trees, resembling vines. These improvised lines were notoriously unreliable and often carried false news or rumors about the war's progress. It became a term for rumor because, much like a vine, the information was twisted, messy, and likely to leave you hanging. 9. Crocodile tears. Ancient naturalists once believed that crocodiles were so human that they would weep with fake sorrow to lure in prey or even cry while they were eating their victims. In reality, crocodiles produce a lubricating fluid to protect their eyes, which often leaks out when they open their jaws to feed. It's the ultimate biological irony. The animal looks like it's mourning your death while it's actively digesting you. 10. Dead as a doornail. Before the Industrial Revolution, nails were handmade and expensive. When building doors, carpenters would drive the nail through the wood and then bend the end over on the other side so it couldn't be pulled out or reused. This was called clenching, and a nail that was bent this way was considered dead because it could never serve another purpose. It's not just dead, it's uselessly permanent. 11. Rub it in. In 17th century England, if you were sentenced to be whipped, the punishment didn't always end when the lashes stopped. To prevent infection, or just to maximize the agony, the jailer would often rub salt directly into the fresh, open wounds. So when you rub it in during an argument, you are metaphorically performing a medical procedure designed to make a scar burn forever. 12. Go to pot. Today, if something goes to pot, it just means it's falling apart or declining in quality. However, the origin is far more literal and culinary. In the Middle Ages, when a farm animal became too old to work, or a piece of meat was too tough, mangled, or questionable to be sold as a prime cut, it was chopped up and thrown into a communal stew pot to be boiled to oblivion. To go to pot was a one-way trip for anything that had outlived its usefulness, ending its life as a shredded, unrecognizable mess in a bubbling cauldron. It's a phrase about reaching the absolute end of the line and being consumed by the process. 13. Read the Riot Act. This wasn't just a stern warning from your mum. The Riot Act was a real law passed in Great Britain in 1714. If a group of 12 or more people gathered, an official had to literally read a specific script aloud, ordering them to disperse within 1 hour. If they didn't, the military was legally allowed to use deadly force. It was a 1-hour countdown to a massacre. 14. Meeting a deadline. During the American Civil War, prison camps like Andersonville had a literal deadline, consisting of a simple wooden rail or a mark in the dirt. Any prisoner who stepped over that line for any reason was shot on sight by the guards in the watchtowers. Today, missing a deadline means a late fee. Back then, it meant a funeral. 15. Skin of your teeth. This phrase actually comes from the book of Job in the Bible, where Job describes his narrow escape from death by saying, "His bones cleaved to my skin and made it with only the skin of my teeth." Since teeth don't actually have skin, he was describing a margin of survival so thin it was basically non-existent. You aren't just barely making it, you are surviving on a biological impossibility. We use these phrases as shortcuts for our feelings, but they are really just linguistic fossils of human suffering. Our language is a map of where we've been, and apparently we've spent a lot of time in graveyards, prisons, and torture chambers. Next time you're pulling someone's leg, just be glad you're not doing it in a dark alley with a hook. See you next time, assuming you don't wake up on the wrong side of the bed.